Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. Now, as you guys know, I currently live here in the state of Alabama. I just moved here. Well, yeah, I permanently moved here, officially moved here recently. Now, I've been here in Alabama for around 4 months. I mean, when I first came down here, I came down here and I was staying at some hotels, just getting a feel of the area, getting a feel of whether I would like to stay down here permanently or not. And, you know, to make a long story short, I decided that I would, for at least the time being, I'll go ahead and stay down here. I mean, because there's stuff about Alabama which I do like and I do enjoy. I mean, one thing I like about living down here is the climate. And given that I'm living here in the southern part of Alabama, I also enjoy the fact that I'm only a couple of hours away from the ocean. So if you guys have not checked out my videos that I've made of Orange Beach, Alabama, and the Gulf Shores of Alabama, go check those videos out. But anyways, this video is not going to be about glorifying Alabama or glorifying my decision to live here in Alabama. I mean, this video is going to be about pointing out some of the truths of Alabama along with some truths and reality of living in the South in general. Because there's a lot of you people that are coming from northern areas, they're coming from the Midwest. And I would say anymore, there's a lot of cases where the cost of living in the Midwest is going to be cheaper than in many places in the South anymore. It used to be the other way around, but it's not like that no more in many cases. So I just want to make this video just letting you guys know the truth about living in the South. That way, before you make that decision to come down here and live in the South, you at least have an idea of what you can expect living here in the South. And, and my list of things are going to be in no particular order. I'm just going to just start talking about stuff. And hopefully you guys get something out of this video for those of you that want to move to the South. So, and now some of the stuff I say will be more Alabama related. And some of the other stuff will be just the typical ways of the South. So anyways, here's a few things about the Deep South. I mean, number one, there's a lot of you people that, I guess we'll start talking about wages. I mean, one thing that's a negative about living in the Deep South, and I'm talking about Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and most likely Louisiana, and definitely Florida. I mean, one significant disadvantage of living in the Deep South is the fact that the wages are going to be low. When I say low, I mean low. Like, here's an example. Now, I'm from the Midwest. Now, and I spent pretty much all my adult life working general labor jobs. And for the most part, I'm pretty frugal with my money. I'm pretty conservative and everything with my money. So I've done pretty well with the money that I've earned working general labor jobs. Now, I've spent the last, I want to say, a few years, give or take, working factory work. Now, up in Indiana, when I was working factory work, I made anywhere from 14 to close to $20 an hour. The last several years I spent working factory work in Indiana. And there were times where I took a break from factory work because factory work does get tiresome. So whenever I took those breaks, I might do a combination of janitorial work and security work, which those type of jobs paid anywhere from 10 to 12 an hour. So, anyways, now I'll be honest with you people. When I first came here to Alabama, I mean, now if you guys go back on my channel and you check out some of my older videos, you will discover that this channel actually did not start in Indiana. It actually started in Montgomery, Alabama. But it wasn't until I started recording videos up in Indiana that I began to get much more people watching my content and subscribing to my channel. So for all of you Hoosiers out there that began watching my channel when I came back home to Indiana to record Indiana content, I got much love for you. You know, much love for Hoosier State. You know, Hoosier for life. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. I mean, when it comes to the wages in the Deep South, I mean, like here in Alabama and in many other places in the Deep South, I mean, on average, if you were to get a job working factory work, your wages could be anywhere from as low as $9 an hour. At the best you're gonna do is $15 an hour, and that would be, and $15 an hour would be if you were to get a job in one of the larger cities, rather it be, let's say, Birmingham or Montgomery or Huntsville, or in Georgia, it'd be Atlanta. You know, you get the idea. So I would say a lot of your factory jobs in the Deep South are going to pay anywhere from $9 to $15 an hour. As for up in Indiana, a lot of your factory jobs started at around $15 an hour. And when it comes to security or janitorial work, I mean, you know, up in Indiana, like I said, your average rates would be anywhere from 10 to 12 bucks an hour. Down here in Alabama, and most likely throughout the Deep South, those same type of jobs are going to pay you anywhere from 8, yes, I did say 8, to I'm going to say anywhere from $8 to $10 an hour is what you can expect to make for the most part for janitorial or security work. And you know, and yes, down here in the Deep South, there are jobs that still will start you out at $8 an hour. Yes, you heard me very clearly. So, if you move to the Deep South, my advice is, A, have a job to where maybe you work online. B, come down here with a special skill, or come down here with some sort of education to where you can come down here and make a half decent living. I mean, if you come down here with the plans of just doing general labor work and getting by off of general labor, in many parts of the Midwest, you know, that might work out if you're wise with your money like I am. But if you come down here to the Deep South with that type of mentality, you can just forget it. Because the wages down here are so low that general labor work is not going to cut the mustard. You're going to be broke, you're going to be struggling, you're going to live a life of being in poverty, and you're just going to be miserable as hell. I want to just tell you guys straight up. In fact, if you were to do general labor work even in other parts of the South, where the wages are a little better, such as Texas, the Carolinas, Tennessee, I mean, and certain parts of Arkansas, I mean, once again, a lot of your general labor wages are not going to be high enough to compensate the slightly higher cost of living in those parts of the South. Oh, and also when I talk about the Deep South, I'm going to include the most. I'm going to include also the most of Arkansas as part of the Deep South. No, just for the record. But anyways, so yeah, the wages down here in the Deep South are going to be significantly lower compared to, let's say, the Midwest. So if you're coming from the Midwest or you're coming from some other type of part of some other part of the country where you're used to earning a certain wage, understand if you're coming out here to the Deep South, the wages are going to be significantly lower. Now, let's talk about the cost of living down here in the South. Now, if you move to the Carolinas or you move to Tennessee or even many parts of Kentucky anymore, or if you move to Texas, the cost of living in that part of the South is going to actually, for the most part, the cost of living in those parts of the South will actually be more expensive compared to many parts of the Midwest. I would say at the very best, the cost of living in many parts of the South will be comparable to the Midwest, if not more expensive. Now, as far as the cost of living in the Deep South, like Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Now, Florida, the cost of living is going to be just completely super crazy, insanely expensive. If you guys don't already realize that by looking at the news and watching other YouTube channels talking about places like Florida, where people have seen their rent jump up by 60 and 70%. The average cost of a home in many parts of Florida has jumped up to $300,000+. So it goes without saying that the cost of living in many parts of Florida is insane, even in the Panhandle. Now, the Panhandle of Florida is a little cheaper, but even the Panhandle is crazy in my opinion. Now, the cost of living in Alabama and Mississippi and Arkansas, I mean, yeah, the cost of living is a little lower compared to many parts of the Midwest. If you want to look at it from a numeric standpoint, but if you want to take into consideration the fact that the wages in the Deep South is also significantly lower compared to, let's say, the Midwest, I would almost say that the cost of living in the Deep South even is more expensive than the Midwest, because numerically the cost of living in many parts of the Midwest is a little more than the Deep South. But when you take into consideration that the Midwest also offers more employment opportunities and the wages are going to be significantly better as well, I would say in that regard, at the very best, your cost of living in the Deep South is going to be comparable to your cost of living in the Midwest. What was I going to say? And honestly, even when you look at the cost of living from a numeric standpoint, now here in many parts of the Deep South, many of your houses will come with bigger lots than they will up in the Midwest. I will say that. And for the most part, your property taxes in the Deep South will be a little lower than in most parts of the Midwest. So I guess in certain ways, from a numeric standpoint, your cost of living down here in the Deep South will be a little lower compared to the Midwest. But like I said earlier, you need to bear in mind that the wages here in the Deep South are going to also be significantly lower compared to the Midwest. So I would say if you're still someone who needs to work and you need to build up your retirement and you haven't got some kind of specific skill or education to where you can come down here and make decent money, or you haven't have, or maybe you're not a hustler, you don't have the hustler's ambition, you're just a 9 to 5 worker, you just want to get a job and do your thing and just be left the hell alone, I'm gonna be completely blunt. Don't come down here to the deep south. Matter of fact, don't even move to the south at all. You would be better off financially staying in the Midwest, because the income to cost of living is going to be much better proportionate in the Midwest than it will be anywhere in the South. In fact, it's going to be much better proportionate in the Midwest than it will anywhere in this entire country, if you ask me. If you don't want to take my word, don't take my word. Do your own due diligence. And when you do your own due diligence, you'll come to find out that what I'm saying is 100% correct. So if you're the type of person that does general labor work and you've been making a living doing general labor work, and you're not interested in learning a specific skill, you're not interested in going back to school or any of that kind of stuff, like I said, your best bet is to stay in the Midwest, keep working your factory job or whatever, keep stacking your money, and hopefully within the next 15, 20 years, depending on your age, you'll have enough to retire. But yeah, my advice is, if you're a 9 to 5 general labor worker, I would not bother moving down here to the south, especially the deep south, because if you do, you're gonna find your money being significantly smaller. You're gonna find yourself sooner or later possibly going broke, and you're gonna find yourself living a impoverished lifestyle. So yeah, now I was gonna talk about some other stuff, but I don't want to make this video too long. I'm already past 17 minutes. So let me see, what else can I talk about? Oh, another thing I want to talk about is, when it comes to Southern hospitality. Whoa, crap. Give me a second here. When it comes to Southern hospitality, and I'm speaking from my experience, and there's some other people that lived here in the South and moved to their native state that can tell you the same thing. But when it comes to Southern hospitality, I personally believe that there was a time in this country where Southern hospitality used to actually be a thing. But I would say in this day and age, Southern hospitality is nothing but a phrase. Because honestly, I don't really see the quote-unquote Southern hospitality that some people believe that's down here in the South. Period. I don't care if you're talking about Kentucky, I don't care if you're talking about the Tennessee or the Carolinas, I don't care if you're talking about the Deep South. In my opinion, from my experience, I think people down here at best are no nicer than people from the Midwest, than people from even the Northeast or the West Coast. And I will say this, I've said this before on some of my other videos, and I'll say it again. In my humble opinion, some of the nicest, most approachable people that I met were actually in North Dakota, when I was up there working the oil field. And I'm not talking necessarily out on the field. I'm talking like when I went to town to go do my grocery shopping and things of that sort, or whenever we had time off and I would go, let's say, to the airport, or I might go just travel around and tour different cities up in North Dakota. I found that North Dakotians, from my experience, were some of the nicest, most approachable people. So the whole Southern hospitality thing, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I think it's a bunch of bull crap. I don't think people down here are any nicer than people anywhere else in this country. I think when it comes to how nice people are, or how nice or how not nice people are, I think it's primarily A, how you deal with people, B, the capacity in which you deal with people within, and C, the type of people that you choose to surround yourself with. I think those three things play a larger factor than rather you're living in the north or the south or the east or west coast, or rather you're even living in the metropolis area, or you're living out in the country. And that's another thing. I mean, from my experience, I don't think people who live out in the country are any nicer or any friendlier than people who live in the city. And I don't care if you're talking about the Midwest. I don't care if you're talking about the North. I don't care if you're talking about anywhere in the South. I don't think people who live in the country are necessarily any nicer than people that live in the city or people who might live in a metropolis. And also from my experience, a lot of people talk about people in the Northeast being aggressive on the road, or people up north driving too fast and being aggressive. Well, I can't say I'm a fan of the Northeast when it comes to the road, because I'm not. But I will say, from my experience, people down here in the South, especially the deep South, tend to be a little bit more aggressive on the road than people in many parts of the Midwest. I would say at the very best, people in the deep South are just as aggressive as people in certain parts of the Midwest. So if you move down here to the deep South, do not assume people are going to be super nice and friendly and people are going to drive nice and slow, because that's all bullshit. I'm going to tell you guys straight up. If you move down here to the deep South because maybe you want to be close to the ocean, maybe you like the warmer climate, okay, come down here, check it out, see if you like it. If you like it, I wish you luck. But if you come down here thinking that people are going to be friendlier, people are going to be nicer, people are going to drive slower and have better road manners, don't come down here, because if you do, you will be very disappointed. And as I discussed earlier, you guys already know what the deal is when it comes to the wages down here. So bear that in mind as well before you come down here and decide to make residency in the South. Because like I told you, if you move to like Tennessee and the Carolinas, for an example, or Texas, the wages in those areas of the South are going to be better compared to Alabama and Mississippi or Arkansas. But you also got to bear in mind the cost of living in Texas and Tennessee and the Carolinas are going to also be significantly higher. So I would say if you want to move to the South, either A, already have a job online that pays decently, B, have a specific skill set that's marketable to where you can make decent money, or have some kind of a college education to where it's marketable, such as STEM, or something in the medical field such as nursing or being an MD. If you have anything like that and you come down here to the deep South, you'll do just fine. If you come down here thinking that you're going to just make a living working general labor, I'm not saying that's not possible, because I guess anything to some degree is possible. But I'm just saying the reality of you doing well working just general labor jobs down here in the South is going to be significantly less compared to doing that line of work in the Midwest, where there's not only more opportunities in general labor, but the pay is also significantly higher compared to what it is down here in the South, especially the deep South. In fact, if you look at the statistics, Indiana is the #1 state for the most amount of blue collar jobs in general. Indiana also has the most amount of jobs in production. So I just thought I would, mention that. The good old Hoosier state. So I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to give you guys a few facts about living in the South. Realistic facts, not that fluff crap that some tourist channel might tell you. So until next time, everybody have a blessed one, and I will see you guys on the next one.